I want you to take a second and just imagine your absolute favorite piece of clothing.
Oh yeah, everyone has that one piece.
Right. Maybe it's that incredibly soft, premium cashmere sweater that you saved up for months.
Or a perfectly tailored blazer, the kind that
Yeah.
just gives you this, armor of confidence when you put it on.
Exactly. Or honestly, maybe it is simply that one pair of perfectly broken in designer denim jeans that fit you like an absolute glove. You know the exact garment I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely, the one you practically live in.
Yeah. So now imagine you pull it out of the closet, you're getting ready for your day, and your heart just drops.
Because you spot it.
You spot it. A moth hole right on the collar of that cashmere, or like a jagged, blown out seam right down the leg of those jeans. And usually when we talk about that moment, there is this heavy expectation of tragedy.
Right, you just panic.
You panic, you think, well, that's it. The structural integrity is gone. This is ruined. It's time to throw it away. Or, I don't know, turn an incredibly expensive piece of fashion into a dusting rag.
It does feel incredibly final. I mean, most of us are conditioned to see a hole in fabric as a one-way street. Once the threads are broken, we just assume the garment is permanently compromised.
But then you step into the world of luxury tailoring, and suddenly that one-way street has a hidden detour.
A very well-hidden detour.
Today, we are taking you into a literal magic trick of the tailoring world. It's a technique that makes severe fabric damage completely, entirely vanish.
It's almost hard to believe until you see it.
It really is. We're exploring the fascinating, almost secretive craft of invisible mending. And we have been absorbing an absolute masterclass of material on this for today's deep dive.
Yeah, we've got some brilliant visual breakdowns from the popular Casual Comfort YouTube channel.
Right, specifically their video on how luxury tailors repair designer clothes.
Exactly, and we're combining that with some really heavy-hitting textile preservation guides.
Because our mission today is to figure out exactly how these artisans are basically reconstructing fabric from thin air.
And beyond just the mechanics of the trick, we're going to look at the cultural shift driving this. Because this incredibly meticulous, almost ancient craft is experiencing a massive, unexpected revival right now.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because going from that tragic feeling of ruining a favorite expensive garment to the total relief that invisible mending provides, I mean, that is a massive mental shift.
It really changes how you view your wardrobe.
So let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly is this magic trick? Because when I think of repairing clothes, I just think of, standard sewing.
Right, the needle and thread approach.
Yeah, you get a needle, you get some thread, you pull the two sides of the hole together as tight as you can, and you tie it off. Or, I mean, if it is a big hole, you just slap a patch over it.
And that standard approach is exactly what invisible mending is rebelling against.
Rebelling against it.
Yeah, because standard sewing is functional, sure, but it leaves visible, physical scars.
That's a good way to put it.
When you pull the edges of a hole together, you create a pucker. You see the stitches. You see where the fabric is bunched up.
Right, it's never quite the same.
Exactly. Invisible mending, on the other hand, is about fundamentally reconstructing the architecture of the fabric itself.
Reconstructing the architecture.
Yes, it is a highly specialized repair technique where the tailor uses perfectly matching fibers and identical weaving patterns to actually rebuild the missing area.
Wow.
The goal is for the repair to blend so completely with the surrounding material that the human eye literally cannot tell it was ever damaged.
It is wild to think about. I was trying to visualize this when we were prepping, and the best way to think about it is like editing a photograph.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right, because standard sewing is like putting a digital sticker or a Band-Aid over a soda bomber in the background of your picture. It covers the problem, but everyone can clearly see the sticker.
They know something is hidden there.
Exactly. But invisible mending is like using the Photoshop clone stamp tool in real life. You are going over to a healthy part of the fabric, copying the exact color, the texture, the pattern like the literal pixels of the cloth, and meticulously pasting them over the damage, pixel by pixel, thread by thread, until the whole just ceases to exist.
What's fascinating here is why this matters on a purely structural level, not just an aesthetic one.
Okay, structural how?
Well, when you just pull a hole closed with standard thread, you are essentially creating a brand new point of tension in the garment.
Oh, I see.
You are stretching the surrounding healthy fibers to bridge a gap they were never meant to bridge.
Right, because there's literally material missing.
Exactly. And that changes how the garment drapes on your body. It changes how it moves, and it often leads to a new tear right next to the old one.
Because it's pulling too tight.
Yes.
Yes.
But invisible mending avoids all of that. By weaving new fibers into the existing grid of the fabric, you maintain the garment's original tension.
You mentioned the grid of the fabric, and that seems to be the secret language here. Because fabric isn't just a solid sheet of material like a piece of paper.
Exactly. Fabric is an architectural grid. At its most basic level, you have the warp threads.
The warp threads.
Yeah, which act as the vertical skeleton of the fabric. They're pulled tight on the loom. Then you have the weft threads, which are woven horizontally over and under the warp to give the fabric its flesh and its texture.
Okay, warp is vertical, weft is horizontal.
Right. So to be an invisible mender, you aren't just a sewer. You are a structural engineer. You have to be able to read that specific warp and weft grid and perfectly replicate it.
But knowing they can theoretically rebuild this grid makes me wonder about the physical limits of this surgery.
It definitely has limits.
Because a tiny mock hole in a static wool sweater seems manageable, but what about the knee of a pair of jeans? I mean, that bends, stretches, and scrapes against surfaces 1,000 times a day. How does the actual fabric type dictate if this magic trick even works?
It entirely dictates the success of the repair. Let's look at the fabric forensics, essentially. You generally have four main culprits for damage.
Okay, what are they?
You've got small holes, usually from moths or friction. You have torn seams from stress, fabric snags where a delicate loop gets pulled out, and worn areas like elbows or knees that have thinned out but haven't fully broken yet.
Right, the classics.
Exactly.
Oh.
And how you fix those depends entirely on the fiber's personality. Wool, for example, is the absolute gold standard for invisible mending.
Why wool specifically? Is it just because it's thicker?
No, it actually has to do with biology.
Geology.
Yeah. Wool fibers under a microscope aren't perfectly smooth. They're covered in these microscopic overlapping scales, almost like shingles on a roof.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when a tailor weaves new wool threads into an old wool sweater, those microscopic scales catch and lock into each other, almost like natural Velcro.
Natural Velcro. That is fascinating.
The natural fibers almost want to be woven back together. They blend beautifully.
So they basically grip onto the repair.
Exactly. And cashmere is similar because it is also a natural animal hair. But the fibers are drastically finer and more delicate, so it requires, specialized handling.
Okay, so animal fibers have these natural Velcro scales. What about something incredibly smooth, like silk? Silk doesn't have scales, right?
No, it doesn't. And that makes silk highly unforgiving.
I can imagine.
Silk isn't made of short, scaly hairs. It is spun from incredibly long, smooth, continuous filaments. It has that highly reflective, mirror-like sheen.
Right, that shiny look.
So because it is so smooth and reflective, if your weaving tension is off by a fraction of a millimeter, the light catches the disruption immediately.
Oh, because the light reflects differently.
Exactly. The repair puckers, a shadow forms, and the illusion is completely shattered. It requires absolute microscopic perfection.
Which is terrifying.
Totally terrifying.
But okay, the material that genuinely blew my mind when we were reviewing these luxury tailoring techniques was denim.
Oh, denim's a great example.
Wait, so if I rip my premium raw denim jeans, they aren't just putting a heavy canvas patch behind it and aggressively sewing over it. They can actually rebuild the denim.
In true high-end invisible mending, yes. They are recreating the exact diagonal twill weave of the denim.
Diagonal twill weave, what does that mean?
Well, if you look closely at a pair of jeans, you'll see these diagonal lines running across the fabric. That's the twill. Usually the indigo dyed threads sit on top, and the white cotton threads cross underneath.
Oh, yeah. I've noticed that on the inside of my jeans.
Right. So a master tailor will find perfectly matched indigo and white threads, and they will literally rebuild that exact diagonal grid over the blowout.
That is insane.
It really is. It strengthens the weak area while entirely preserving the flexible drape and the character of the jeans. You don't get that stiff, bulky, iron-on patch feeling.
That is just incredible, but it also sounds like it takes an agonizing amount of time.
Oh, it does.
I mean, rebuilding silk or denim thread by thread implies a level of precision that the human eye can barely even track. I want to know exactly how they do this. Let's walk through the actual operating room procedure. What does the surgeon's table look like?
It truly mimics a surgical environment. To pull this off, professionals rely on a highly specialized toolkit.
Like what?
Well, they use ultrafine needles, sometimes thinner than a human hair.
Thinner than a hair.
Yeah, which allows them to slip between the existing fabric grid without punching new visible holes. They use insanely sharp microscissors. But the most critical element, without a doubt, is magnification.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because they aren't just eyeballing this.
Not at all.
The masterclass footage we watched shows these tailors working under intense magnifying glasses, sometimes even like jeweler's loops. They are magnifying the microscopic landscape of your coat to map out exactly which thread goes over and which thread goes under.
Because if you miss a single under in a complex houndstooth jacket or a herringbone tweed, the human eye will spot the disruption in the pattern instantly. It requires absolute focus.
Wow.
And the actual professional reconstruction process follows a meticulous 6-step journey.
Okay, let's follow a garment through that journey. Let's say I send in my favorite tailored blazer with a jagged tear right on the lapel. What happens in step one?
Step 1 is the assessment. This is where the garment is placed under the glass. The tailor identifies the exact fiber content, maps the specific weave pattern, whether it is a plain weave, a twill, a satin weave, and determines if the surrounding fibers are healthy enough to even hold a repair.
Makes sense. You have to know what you're working with.
Exactly.
And then we hit step two, which is gathering the materials. Finding matching thread makes sense, but some of these textile guides mention a technique called harvesting.
Yes, harvesting.
Hold on. If you are literally cutting threads out of the inside of my jacket to fix a hole on the outside, aren't you just creating a second hole? How does harvesting not damage the garment further?
It is a great